I just
Congressman
can't imagine
Gutierrez
him do
seems
it.
to think he's going to do
I
it.
know he does, but look, here in the last 2 days, they've gotten progress in what I would call going the wrong direction. But
is that an illegal move, Congressman? If he does that, is that an illegal move?
That is an illegal move. Yes, it is. And
okay.
but on ISIS, let's don't lose sight of the fact that this president's been wrong every time.
We're going to take a break here. We'll.
Yep, there you have it. Texas Representative Louis Gohmert with his 2 cents on the issues going on in the Middle East, along with General, I think it was General Sales that was in there. I didn't get the name. Maybe somebody heard it there. I could replay that because I didn't listen to the whole clip before I put it on here. Oops. I read a brief of it. I just want to really quickly thank the office of Louis Gohmert for sending me the link to that clip so that I could put it up for you guys. And of course, that was on the Neil Cavuto show on Fox. So need to take our not take. Need to give credit where credit's due. Anyway, I do want to talk real briefly, and I was hoping to get one of my former military intelligence professionals, turned college student, recent college grad, going in a different direction. But one of my buddies from back when I was in uniform on here to kind of discuss this with me a little bit. But the general, he agreed with Louis Gohmert, and I'm going to agree with the general. I've faced these people before in many different situations. From actually on the battlefield with them attempting to kill me with weapons and me doing the same back to them in self-defense, as well as preservation of the lives in and around and near me, because they weren't necessarily attacking me at first. They were attacking innocent civilians. And I've also had the, trying to look for the proper euphemism here, had the distinct honor and pleasure of sitting across the table from some of the extremists and staring them in the eyes and seeing a little bit of what's going on inside their heads and what they believe based on their rhetoric and the way they act and what they say. And it can be frightening, folks. They honestly believe that they're doing what's good and righteous, while anybody with a little bit of a rational mind, anyone who actually believes in a kind, loving, and forgiving God or gods, can see that their actions are not good. They're trying to force people to become subservient and enslaved to their view of what they are claiming is a kind and peaceful deity. And when you're forcing people by the edge of a sword to convert or die, that's not very peaceful. That's not very forgiving. That's not very loving. That's ruling through terror and fear. Now, there are several of people that are on my side of the aisle, kind of have similar political views to me, who think that, or will tell you that all of Islam is like that. From my personal experience, I'll tell you right now, at one point I would have agreed with them, and then I went to war. And I've seen the segment that is evil and extremist, the terrorists. And I've also dealt with people who are part of that broader religion or religious segment group, Muslims, people that ascribe to Islam, and I've met them and talked with them and lived with them and fought side by side with them, and they are not all like that. The problem is you have the terrorists giving the decent good people a bad name. So, as much banner waving as everybody wants to give as give to fighting all of Islam. I just will not buy into that. Now, somebody can sit back and argue that with me until the cows come home and voluntarily walk into the slaughterhouse and say, hey, take this right here, this is my best cut. I haven't had a cow tell me this is the best cut of beef off of my ribs, take this ever. So, don't see it ever happening, so don't ever see that being resolved. But that's my direct experience talking. And I have several Muslim friends, some of which who have actually saved my life. So, not exactly going to badmouth somebody who has fought side by side and bled with me and saved my butt in the past. Just not going to happen. But the terrorists do present a clear and present danger to our nation and to our way of life. So think about for that just a second. Now that you've thought about that, I want to add this into there. When you're talking about Syria itself, you're talking about the Assad regime versus the Al-Qaeda linked caliphate wanting to set up terrorist group, the Islamic State, ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call them this week. Same group. You can call them Al-Qaeda and you're still correct. But whatever you want to call them, trying to decide between the two of them is actually a difficult choice. And here's why. Both sides are tyrannic. Both sides are evil. Because Assad's political ideology, the form of government he is ruling over Syria with, is the same form that Saddam Hussein used over Iraq. Although probably not quite as bad, but still right there. And where does their ideology come from? Where does their foundation come from? Where do they get those ideas? They got them from the same place that Adolf Hitler got his. In fact, it was Hitler's regime's influence on the area that helped to found the whole Ba'ath Party. And the Ba'ath Party really is a National Socialist Party. So, if you actually look and understand history and understand what the Nazis out of Germany was doing was evil and bad, like most people would, most reasonable and sensible people would, it's the same form of government with the same ideology, the same willingness to do evil that you have to deal with there. So you have Saddam Hussein did that stuff, and that's that's part of the reason why we wanted to liberate Iraq. There are a whole bunch of reasons. I could sit back and give a laundry list of reasons. Everybody that says that we went there for oil, I'm sorry, but if oil was on the list, it's down near the bottom. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes before that. Well, Assad's regime is not much better than Saddam Hussein's. In fact, they both had the same mentors coming up. And there were a lot of members of the Ba'ath Party out of Iraq who, when we went in, escaped to Syria and were given asylum there and ended up joining with the Assad regime. So, you have evil on one side, and then you have a terrorist evil on the other side. Now, I don't know if I could choose the lesser of two evils between the two of them. I would say we'd have to take one of them out, the more pressing threat, and keep an eye on the other and be prepared to have to take action there. And that makes things really difficult, which makes me almost understand Obama's policy of our strategic plan is not to have one. Almost. Because, folks, you have to have a plan. Action is always better than inaction, especially when you're dealing with a threat, a direct threat. And both of them are Well, let me restate that. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL, IS, whatever you want to call them, they're a direct threat to us, whether you want to recognize it or not. They've been trying, if not already, sneaking operatives in with sleeper cells, etc. I mean, heck, they are directly linked to Al-Qaeda. They're part of the Al-Qaeda umbrella, which means they're part of the group that flew planes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. They've attacked us. So they are a direct threat. They also, Benghazi, you don't say anymore. So think about that. They are a direct threat to the United States and our people. Assad, not so much an imminent direct threat. He's a threat, or a potential threat, but not exactly right now. Could be in the future. So, if you have to prioritize, there's your priorities. So I agree with the general there. When it comes to these terrorists, I don't care what their religion is, they're a terrorist who wants to use threats of violence and actual violence in order to force people to bow down and do what they say. I'm not exactly willing to bow down to that. If anything, I'm a little bit of a rebel. You try that with me, I'm probably going to fight you tooth and nail, just on principle alone. Now, if you can get me to agree with you and side with you, that's one thing, in a nice, peaceful debate. But as soon as you tell me, do what I tell you to do, believe what I tell you to believe, or I'm going to chop off your head, you might be successful, but you're not going to come away unscathed. I'm not going to go down that easy. So, that's just me, folks. That's my perspective. And the tan suit wearing Pres-Bill-in-Chief up there saying we don't have a strategy. Well, first of all, we probably do. He just doesn't know what it is, because our military planners are not that dense, despite the fact that he's thinned the ranks and tried to kick out as many free-thinking, tactical-minded, smart officers out of the military, leaving nothing but lapdogs in there. There's still enough good leaders in the military and good planners that I don't think that there is no strategy. It's just that Obama doesn't know what it is and doesn't want to give a go order for any of them because he doesn't understand military tactics or strategy whatsoever. And he's already shown that several times over. So, again, that's just my take on what's going on with that. I'm sure there's some expert who sits there in the White House and listens like a fly on the wall to all this crap who could try to debate me. But this is coming from the perspective of somebody who spent a few days, 24 years worth, in the military and actually has been on the other side of the looking glass and knows a little bit about what's going on with those things. So, with all that going on, we've got a few other things to talk about other than just this looming big ball, this ball cloud of evil hatred that's spreading across the world and is threatening us. We've got other things going on here back home to talk about.
Our men and women in uniform have valiantly served and profoundly sacrificed for our nation. That's why Texas is expanding staffing at the Texas Veterans Hotline with experts trained to help veterans deal with the VA. Callers can learn what they qualify for, and in the most urgent cases, TVC experts will work directly with the VA to help veterans get the answers and care they need and deserve. Call the hotline at 1-800-252-VETS.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to say anything bad about Governor Perry or his pro-veterans programs here in Texas because they are doing their best and they're doing as good as they can. And they've done a lot of good stuff. I do also know people who have worked within California's state VA program, and they've done some good things there as well. And I'm not a big fan of the state of California, in general, but I do know people who work directly for their VA, and they worked their butts off to get through the federal VA crap and get veterans taken care of. And in a lot of cases, it was a really hard fight for something that should have been a simple form. Here, look this over, sign the bottom, and get it started for this veteran. That they're owed the benefits, but that isn't always the case. And there's other states that have state-level agencies. So if you're having trouble with the federal VA, go to your state veterans agencies and see if they can help you out a little bit, and talk to your state representatives and your state-level politicians, and they could be able to help a little bit. And then, of course, you could always go to your federal congressmen and your U.S. senators out of your state, and push for those as well. And there's several on both sides of the aisle that are willing to go to bat for you or your veteran family member. So Texas is doing its good stuff. However, and I wrote about this, and I think I've probably talked about it on the show a couple of times, but the good old VA Office of the Inspector General came out with their latest report with the ridiculous claims that the whistleblower reported deaths coming out of Phoenix and other locations may not have been exactly directly attributed to the stuff, to the electronic waiting lists, or the sorry, not the waiting lists, but the secret waiting lists. You know, that's nice. They can sit there and try to cover their butts, and I'm sure they're trying to. I'm sure they're bowing to a little bit of union thuggery there. But speaking of union thuggery, there's a article. Well, before I get to that, Obama has signed 19 executive orders dealing with veterans' health. All right, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to go and read the fine print on these things. And given the way the VA is already being, and a lot of these deal with going from the Department of Defense system into the VA system, and how they're supposed to carry over and do better information sharing and blah, blah, blah to take care of the veterans. But one of the things to worry about here is we've seen how good the VA handles things, and they're still messed up. Despite all these probes and reports, they haven't fixed anything. They've talked about it. Talking ain't doing. Doing's doing. And then if you go and look over at the Daily Caller, there's a great article, and this is not new news to me, because we saw the same thing happen with some of our sources when I was over at the Brenner Brief. Our writer Patricia Campion had talked to some whistleblowers out of Buffalo and heard about all the whistleblower retaliation going there, and some of it was coming from within the VA itself, but even more of it was coming from the SEIU. They were not VA workers. They're the union that represents VA workers. So while whistleblower retaliation is against the law for the VA to do, if they feel they can't get away with it, in many cases they think they can, so they do. But when they know there's no way because it's too much of a spotlight, they kick the SEIU steps in and does their versions of retaliation instead. So the retaliation is still happening. Well, Daily Caller's sources, they're the whistleblowers that talk to them, such as Sean Higgins and Charlie Williams, said that they've been targeted for retaliation anyway, despite the law. And originally they were anonymous when they gave their information to Daily Caller, but they went public after they faced retaliation for handing things out to the media and reporting things to the appropriate investigating authorities. But this goes all the way back to April of this year, when Higgins made his first complaint to the Joint Commission